This is Akashvani Mangaluru. Dear listeners, in today's Talk in English program now, Nivedita Mirajkar will deliver a speech, Creating Safe Workplaces, Understanding the POSH Act and its Impact.
Today we are going to talk about a topic that affects millions of women across the globe. Yet, it is swept under the rug or avoided in conversations. Sexual harassment of women at the workplace. We are here to explore, understand, and more importantly, learn about the Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women at the Workplace Act, or more commonly known as the POSH Act. Is it just a set of guidelines on paper, or does it truly make a difference in ensuring safer work environments for everyone? The workplace should be a space where everyone can perform their best, feel respected, and grow without any fear of discrimination or harassment. Unfortunately, this is not always the reality. Many women, and sometimes even men, face unwanted attention, remarks, or physical advances while at work. It's not just the physical forms of harassment we are talking about. Verbal abuse, inappropriate comments, and suggestive jokes can have just as much of a lasting impact. But here's the thing. Many people either don't recognize it when it crosses the line, or they are too afraid to speak up. And this is where the POSH Act comes in. Passed in 2013, the Prevention of Sexual Harassment at the Workplace Act mandates that employers take proactive steps to create a safe working environment. It's a law designed to protect individuals from harassment, ensure accountability, and create a culture of respect and dignity at the workplace. The Vishaka guidelines given by the Supreme Court were the base for this 2013 Act. Let's look at the genesis of this Act. The genesis of this Act lies in the growing recognition of the need for legal framework to protect women in work environments from sexual harassment. These are some of the key milestones leading to the POSH Act. Number 1, social and legal context. Prior to the POSH Act, there was no comprehensive law specifically addressing sexual harassment at workplaces in India. While some provisions under Indian Penal Code, IPC, and the Indian Constitution dealt with gender equality and protection against assault, there was no specific legal framework for sexual harassment at work. Number 2, Vishaka Guidelines, which were passed in 1997. The landmark event that laid the foundation for the POSH Act was the Supreme Court's decision in the Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan case in 1997. The case involved a public sector employee, Bhavri Devi, who was raped while working as a social worker. The Supreme Court ruled that the Indian state had failed to provide sufficient legal protection for women against sexual harassment at work and laid down guidelines for employers to prevent and redress complaints of sexual harassment. These guidelines came to be known as the Vishaka Guidelines. They dictated that creation of a complaint mechanism in the workplace, formation of an internal complaints committee or internal committee as it's now known to handle complaints, responsibilities of the employer to create awareness about the issues of sexual harassment, and not the least, the definition of sexual harassment itself. After extensive consultations, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013, commonly referred to as the POSH Act, was passed. The POSH Act 2013 came into effect on December 9, 2013. The POSH Act was a major step forward in addressing sexual harassment in the workplace, ensuring that women's rights are protected in their professional workplace. POSH Act requires all organizations to have a policy in place to prevent sexual harassment. This includes, number 1, clear definition of sexual harassment. The Act defines sexual harassment as any unwelcome behavior of a sexual nature that creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. This can include physical advances, verbal harassment, or even non-verbal conduct like inappropriate gestures or sharing of explicit content. Number 2, Internal Complaints Committee, now called the Internal Committee or the IC. The Act mandates that every organization with more than 10 employees must set up an internal complaints committee. This committee is responsible for addressing complaints and conducting investigations into allegations of sexual harassment. For the unorganized sector, or where there are less than 10 employees, a local committee or a LC is formed by the district officer. Number 3, training and awareness. Employers are required to provide regular training and awareness sessions for employees, especially those in leadership positions, about the importance of maintaining a safe work environment. This training ensures that employees know their rights and understand what constitutes harassment. Number 4, confidentiality and non-retaliation. The law ensures that complaints are handled confidentially. Retaliation against complainants or witnesses is prohibited, providing them with protection against any form of revenge or discrimination of speaking out. Number 5, the action and resolution. Once a complaint is filed, the IC is required to investigate the matter in a timely manner and take appropriate action. If an individual is found guilty of sexual harassment, disciplinary action can range from a warning to termination, depending on the severity of the offense. While the POSH Act was a landmark piece of legislation, it's also important to recognize that implementation has been a challenge for some organizations. According to various reports and surveys, many businesses have failed to create a safe space for employees to report harassment. Sometimes the ICs are not functioning properly, or the policies are either non-existent or just symbolic and on paper. But does that mean the Act is ineffective? Definitely not. The POSH Act has made a real difference by raising awareness and creating a framework for accountability. More and more organizations are now recognizing the need for strict policies and proper implementation. The Act has empowered individuals to speak up, and that alone has shifted workplace cultures across the country. For instance, in industries like hospitality, tech, media, and education, there have been significant improvements in handling sexual harassment complaints. We've seen a shift from silence is golden to speak up and seek justice. But it's important to note that the POSH Act isn't just about dealing with complaints after the fact. It's about creating a proactive culture where everyone understands the boundaries, respects one another, and takes a stand against inappropriate behavior before it escalates. Now, it's not all smooth sailing. As effective as the POSH Act is in theory, there are some significant challenges in its application. One major issue is that many employees, especially in smaller companies, still don't fully understand what constitutes harassment. It's essential that awareness programs be robust and widespread, especially in industries where the power dynamics can often be skewed, like in large corporations or hierarchical sectors. Another challenge is the reluctance to report incidents. A lot of victims fear retaliation, whether it's losing their job, facing social ostracism, or being labeled as a troublemaker. And let's face it, many women still feel that their complaints won't be taken seriously or that the system is rigged against them. This is why creating an open, transparent, and supportive environment is crucial. Furthermore, not all companies have set up the IC as required by law, and in some cases, the IC members may not be adequately trained or empowered to handle complaints effectively. But despite these hurdles, there have been notable success stories as well. Take the example of the tech industry, where many companies have implemented not just formal training, but also anonymous reporting systems to make it easier for employees to speak out without fear of retribution. In many cases, it has led to better working environments and an increase in women's participation in leadership roles. Another example comes from the hospitality industry, where strict enforcement of the POSH Act has made it safer for both male and female employees working in customer facing roles. Awareness drives, support systems, and zero tolerance policies have resulted in tangible improvements in workplace safety. Let's see, how can employees protect themselves? As an employee, there are several things that you can do to protect yourself and ensure that you're aware of your rights under the POSH Act. Number 1, know your rights. Familiarize yourself with organization sexual harassment policy. Understand what constitutes sexual harassment and how to file a complaint if needed. Number 2, document everything. If you feel that you're being harassed, document every incident. This could include saving messages, emails, or even making a note of conversations or actions that made you uncomfortable. Number 3, speak up. Don't be afraid to speak to your HR department or your manager. Many organizations have an anonymous reporting system, so don't hesitate to use it. Remember, it's your right to work in a safe and respectful environment. And number 4, seek support if needed. If you don't feel comfortable speaking to your employer, reach out to an external body like a legal counsel or a support group. There are also NGOs that provide support for victims of sexual harassment. The POSH Act is undoubtedly an essential tool in the fight against sexual harassment in the workplace. It empowers employees, holds employers accountable, and fosters a culture of respect and safety. However, much more remains to be done to ensure its effective implementation, particularly in raising awareness, encouraging reporting, and providing adequate support to victims. If you are an employee, remember that your workplace should be a place where you feel respected, safe, and valued. If you are an employer, it's your duty to create an environment where sexual harassment is not tolerated and where every individual can thrive without fear. Let's continue to have open conversations, educate ourselves, and support each other in making our workplaces better for everyone. Stay safe, stay respectful, and until the next time, keep the conversations going.
Dear listeners, you have just heard Nivedita Mirajkar speaking on the topic Creating Safe Workplaces, Understanding the POSH Act and its Impact. This talk came to you from the studios of Akashvani Mangaluru.